Please wake up. We have an emergency.
A 22-year-old woman sleeping in 8A. A 747 falling from the sky. When the captain screamed for combat pilots, passengers laughed, until she stood up. What nobody knew, Lieutenant Maya Reeves had more combat hours than both pilots combined. What happened next broke every aviation rule. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The Boeing 787 hummed through the night sky at 38,000 feet, a silver capsule suspended between continents. Inside, most passengers had surrendered to sleep, their seats reclined, blankets pulled to chins, screens dimmed to black. The cabin lights glowed amber soft, creating that peculiar intimacy of strangers traveling together through darkness. In seat 8A, pressed against the window, a young woman slept with her head tilted awkwardly against the cold plastic. She looked barely out of her teens, 22 at most, with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail and wearing an oversized university hoodie that read, UCLA Engineering. Her face, relaxed in sleep, held that unguarded vulnerability of youth. A calculus textbook lay open on her lap, pages dog-eared and margins filled with scribbled notes. To anyone passing by, she was just another exhausted college student heading home after finals, desperate for rest after pulling too many all-nighters. Nobody knew her real name wasn't on the passenger manifest. Nobody knew the hoodie was borrowed from a roommate she'd never see again. And nobody, absolutely nobody, knew that Lieutenant Maya Reeves had more combat flight hours than the pilot and co-pilot combined. The flight attendant, a motherly woman named Patricia who'd been working this route for 15 years, paused by row 8 during her final check. She smiled at the sleeping girl, gently adjusting the blanket that had slipped to the floor. Poor thing looked completely worn out. Patricia had a daughter about the same age. She understood the exhaustion of being young and ambitious, burning both ends of the candle while trying to build a future. If only she knew that Maya had been awake for 47 hours straight, not from studying, but from flying Black Ops missions over hostile territory that officially never happened. The flight from Los Angeles to Tokyo was supposed to be unremarkable. Maya had chosen this route specifically for its forgettable nature, a standard commercial flight, middle seat purchased with cash, no connections to her real identity. After 6 years of classified service that had taken her from the Air Force Academy to the cockpit of an F-35 Lightning II, she was finally rotating home. Not permanently, never permanently, but for 6 weeks of mandatory psychological evaluation and debriefing. The military called it decompression. Maya called it torture. She didn't want to talk about what she'd done, what she'd seen, who she'd become. She just wanted to sleep. But sleep on military bases came with sounds, the roar of jet engines, the bark of drill sergeants, the constant thrum of generators. Here, 38,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, the white noise of commercial engines finally let her mind release its grip. For the first time in months, her dreams weren't filled with missile locks and emergency ejection protocols. She dreamed of her grandmother's kitchen. The smell of fresh tortillas. Laughter. The turbulence hit without warning. The plane dropped, bucked, then dropped again, violent enough that overhead compartments sprang open, spilling bags and duty-free bottles into the aisle. Passengers jerked awake with gasps and small screams. The seatbelt sign dinged on with urgent insistence. Maya's eyes snapped open, her body instantly alert despite her exhausted mind. Years of training had conditioned her to wake at the first sign of irregularity. Her hand instinctively reached for a flight stick that wasn't there, muscle memory stronger than conscious thought. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking." The voice over the intercom was steady but carried an undertone that made Maya's spine straighten. "We're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts securely fastened. Flight attendants, please take your seats immediately." The way he said it, the specific cadence, the controlled breathing, told Maya this wasn't just turbulence. She'd heard that same tone in her own voice during emergencies, that careful balance between authority and concealed alarm. Something was wrong. The plane shuddered again, harder this time. The businessman across the aisle gripped his armrests, knuckles white. A child started crying 3 rows back. Patricia, the flight attendant, was speed-walking toward the galley when the plane lurched so violently she stumbled, catching herself against a seat. Then came the sound that changed everything. A sharp metallic bang, like someone had struck the fuselage with a hammer. Then another. And another. Maya's blood turned to ice. She knew that sound. She'd heard it before, in combat, when her aircraft had taken ground fire. But they were over the Pacific Ocean, hundreds of miles from any land, at cruising altitude where nothing should be able to reach them. Unless something was up here with them. The cabin lights flickered. Several passengers screamed. The plane banked hard enough that unsecured items slid across surfaces and people pressed against their seatbelts. "This is not normal turbulence," the businessman across from Maya whispered, his face gray. "This is not normal." Maya's mind raced through possibilities. Bird strike at this altitude? Impossible. Mechanical failure? Possible, but that sound was external impact. Severe weather? The sky outside her window was clear, stars visible. That left one option she didn't want to consider. The intercom crackled to life again. This time, the captain's voice was different, stripped of composure, raw with something that sounded like fear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need your complete attention." A pause. Maya could hear him breathing. "We have an unprecedented situation. If there is anyone on board with military aviation experience, any fighter pilots, combat aircraft operators, anyone with tactical flight training, please identify yourself immediately to the flight crew. This is not a joke. This is not a drill. We need you now." The cabin erupted in confused murmurs. People looked at each other, bewilderment mixing with rising panic. A fighter pilot? On a commercial flight? What kind of situation would require that? Maya sat frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. She couldn't. She couldn't reveal herself. Her presence on this flight was off-book, unsanctioned. She was traveling under a civilian identity, carrying forged documents, explicitly ordered to maintain her cover at all costs. Breaking protocol could compromise active operations, expose classified programs, destroy everything she'd worked for. Another impact shook the plane. This time Maya saw it through the window, a brief flash of light streaking past, close enough that she glimpsed the outline of something angular and fast. Her breath caught. That was a military aircraft. And they were being intercepted. Patricia appeared in the aisle, moving quickly despite the turbulence, her professional smile gone, replaced by barely controlled fear. "Please, does anyone have military flight experience? Anyone?" Passengers shook their heads, some laughing nervously, thinking this had to be some bizarre mistake. An elderly man in business class raised his hand and said he'd flown helicopters in Vietnam, but Patricia shook her head. She needed jet pilots, modern tactical experience. "Anyone?" Patricia's voice cracked. "Please, we're being told this is critical." Maya's fingernails dug into her palms. Every instinct screamed at her to stay silent, to protect her cover, to follow her orders. She'd been trained to withstand interrogation, to maintain her identity under extreme pressure. Staying quiet was literally her job. But she'd also been trained to protect civilian lives. And right now, 347 people on this aircraft needed someone who understood what was happening in the sky around them. The plane shuddered again. Through the window, Maya caught another glimpse, definitely a fighter jet, running dark, matching their speed. Her trained eye caught details others would miss, the wing configuration, the angle of approach, the deliberate positioning that blocked escape routes. This was a professional intercept. Which meant whoever was out there knew what they were doing. And that made this situation exponentially more dangerous. A woman near the front started sobbing. "Are we going to die?" Someone tell me we're not going to die. Maya closed her eyes. She thought of her commanding officer's words during her last briefing, "You don't exist on paper right now, Lieutenant. If you're compromised, we can't help you. You understand?" She understood. But she also understood that silence right now was a death sentence for everyone on board. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. The movement felt surreal, like watching someone else's body from a distance. The young college student facade was slipping away with each step she took toward the front of the plane. "Here." Her voice came out steady, stronger than she felt. "I have tactical flight experience." Every head in the cabin turned toward her. Patricia's face flooded with relief, but also confusion. This was a kid, barely out of her teens, wearing a university hoodie. "Miss, I need someone with military." "I'm a fighter pilot," Maya interrupted quietly. Then, louder, with the command voice she used in the cockpit, "Lieutenant Maya Reeves, United States Air Force. F-35 Lightning II. 4,300 flight hours, 800 combat. I can help." The cabin went absolutely silent. Then chaos erupted, passengers shouting questions, some demanding to know if this was real, others crying with relief that someone, anyone, might know what to do. Patricia grabbed Maya's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Come with me. Now." As Maya followed her toward the cockpit, she caught fragments of passengers' reactions. "She's just a kid. Did she say fighter pilot? Oh, thank God, thank God. How is that even possible?" The businessman from across the aisle stared at her like she'd suddenly grown wings. The mother with the crying child clutched her baby tighter, hope and terror warring on her face. Maya kept her eyes forward, her mind already shifting gears. Whatever came next, she couldn't think about consequences or protocols or orders. Right now, she had one job: keep these people alive. Patricia knocked on the reinforced cockpit door, 3 sharp raps, a pause, then 2 more. A code. The door cracked open, and Maya glimpsed the co-pilot's face, pale and sweating. "Captain Richards, she says she's military. Get her in here. Now." The cockpit was chaos. Warning lights flashed across every panel. The radar screen showed multiple contacts, for at least, positioned around them in a tactical formation. The captain, a silver-haired man in his 50s, had the yoke in a white-knuckle grip, while the co-pilot worked frantically across communication channels, getting nothing but static. "Lieutenant Reeves." The captain's voice was tight. "Tell me you're real. Tell me you actually know what you're doing." Maya's eyes scanned the instruments, her brain processing information faster than conscious thought. Altitude, speed, fuel status, system integrity. Everything was nominal except for the 4 aircraft pacing them, and the fact that their communications had been jammed. "I'm real." She moved to stand between the 2 pilots, her presence somehow steadying the space. "And we're in serious trouble. Those are military jets running an intercept protocol. Someone really doesn't want us reaching Tokyo." The captain's face confirmed what Maya had feared. "They appeared 20 minutes ago. Emerged from cloud cover at our 6, matched our speed, then surrounded us. We tried to hail them, nothing. Tried to contact air traffic control, our radios being jammed. Then one of them fired warning shots across our nose." He swallowed hard. "Actual missiles, Lieutenant. They fired missiles at a commercial airliner." Maya's jaw clenched. This was worse than she thought. "Did they hit anything?" "Negative. They went over us, under us. Demonstration shots." But the message was clear. The captain looked at her with desperate eyes. "They want us to follow them. They're hurting us off our flight path, away from shipping lanes, away from any possible help. Show me the radar." The co-pilot pulled up the tactical display. 4 contacts, positioned perfectly, high and low, port and starboard. A textbook intercept formation that allowed complete control of the target's movement. Whoever was flying those aircraft had extensive training. But something was wrong. Maya studied the radar signatures, her brow furrowing. These aren't standard configurations, she muttered. The radar cross-sections are off. These jets have been modified, stealth characteristics, probably to avoid detection while getting this close. She looked up at the captain. This is not a random intercept. This is planned, coordinated, and extremely illegal. The question is, why? The captain and co-pilot exchanged glances. Lieutenant, the captain said slowly, we need to tell you something. We weren't supposed to say anything to passengers, but, there's cargo in our hold. Government cargo. Diplomatic seal, no inspection allowed. Maya's stomach dropped. What kind of cargo? We don't know. But 3 men in suits were very insistent that this plane, specifically, needed to carry it. They paid premium for secure transport. Of course. Maya's mind raced. She'd been played. This wasn't coincidence, someone had known about that cargo, had known the route, had waited for the perfect moment to strike. And they'd chosen a commercial flight specifically because it would be unexpected, harder to defend. But they hadn't counted on her being aboard. All right. Maya's voice shifted, became crisp and tactical. Here's what's happening. Those jets are going to force us to a remote location, probably an abandoned airstrip or somewhere with no satellite coverage. Once we land, they take the cargo and likely eliminate all witnesses to avoid an international incident. The co-pilot's face went white. Eliminate? They can't leave evidence or survivors who saw military aircraft hijacking a civilian plane. Maya said it matter-of-factly, though her heart hammered. But we're not going to let it get that far. How? The captain's voice cracked. We're a 787, not a fighter jet. We can't outrun them. We can't fight them. What can we possibly do? Maya stared at the radar screen, her mind working through scenarios, tactics, options. She'd trained for air-to-air combat, for dogfighting, for evasion protocols. But always in an F-35, agile, fast, armed. A commercial airliner was none of those things. But it had advantages they might not expect. Captain, I need you to trust me completely. I'm going to tell you to do things that violate every safety protocol in commercial aviation. Things that will terrify your passengers. But if we don't act right now, we're all dead. Can you do that? Captain Richard stared at her, this young woman who'd been asleep in 8A 20 minutes ago, who looked like she should be worried about term papers, not military tactics. Then he nodded. Tell me what you need. First, I need to know everything about this aircraft's capabilities. Maximum dive speed, stress tolerances, how tight can we turn? As the co-pilot rattled off specifications, Maya's mind constructed a plan. It was insane. It violated everything she knew about aviation safety. But it was their only chance. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. The radio suddenly crackled to life. Not their normal frequency, this was a military channel, someone punching through the jamming with raw power. A voice, cold and accented, filled the cockpit. Flight 624, you will alter course to heading 180. You will descend to 15,000 feet. You will not contact air traffic control. Comply immediately or we will open fire on your engines. The threat hung in the air like poison. Maya grabbed the radio before the captain could respond. When she spoke, her voice carried the absolute authority of someone who'd stared down missiles before. Unidentified aircraft, this is Lieutenant Maya Reeves, United States Air Force. You are in violation of international aviation law by threatening a civilian aircraft. Break off immediately and identify yourselves. Silence. Then harsh laughter crackled through the speaker. A fighter pilot on a commercial flight. How fortunate. It changes nothing, Lieutenant. Turn to heading 180 or watch your right engine explode. Maya's eyes flicked to the radar. One of the jets was positioning behind them, weapon systems hot. They were out of time. Captain, Maya said quietly, when I tell you, put us into a dive. Steep as you can manage. Then I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. But the passengers will be terrified. But alive. She locked eyes with him. On my mark. 3, 2. The radar screamed a warning. Missile launch. Dive now. Captain Richard slammed the yoke forward. The 787 dropped from the sky like a stone. Passengers screamed as gravity released them, their stomachs lurching as the massive aircraft pitched into an emergency descent. Overhead compartments burst open, sending luggage and bags flying. The cabin pressure shifted, ears popping painfully. Maya watched the radar with absolute focus. The missile had been aimed at their previous position, it streaked through empty air where they'd been seconds before, unable to course-correct fast enough for the commercial jet's unexpected maneuver. Level out at 25,000. Now turn hard left, hard left. The captain obeyed, throwing the yoke sideways. The 787 banked at an angle commercial aircraft should never attempt, the wings straining against forces they weren't designed for. More screams from the cabin. Someone was definitely injured back there, but alive was better than dead. What are you doing? The co-pilot shouted over the chaos. Making us a difficult target. Maya's eyes never left the instruments. They expected a predictable flight path. We just showed them we're not playing by their rules. The 4 fighters had scattered, surprised by the aggressive maneuver. They were regrouping now, but Maya had bought them precious seconds. Captain, I need you to listen carefully. Those jets are faster and more maneuverable than we'll ever be. But we have something they don't, we're expendable to them. They need us alive to get that cargo. We can use that. By crashing. The captain's voice was raw. By making them believe we might. Maya's mind was racing 3 moves ahead. Commercial jets aren't supposed to perform combat maneuvers. They're not supposed to risk their passengers. That's what they're counting on, our predictability. So we stop being predictable. She keyed the radio. Unidentified aircraft, I know what you are. I know your capabilities and your limitations. I've flown against jets like yours in training. And I'm telling you right now, you can shoot us down, but you'll never force us to land. Because the moment we touch ground, everyone on this plane is dead. So if you want that cargo, you're going to have to rethink your strategy. Silence on the other end. She'd surprised them. Then the voice came back, harder, you would kill everyone aboard to stop us. Maya's response was ice cold, I would do what's necessary to save their lives. Because unlike you, I actually care whether they survive. Now back off, or I'll show you what tactical flying really looks like. It was a bluff, she was working with a commercial airliner, not a fighter jet. But psychology was part of combat, and right now she needed them uncertain, hesitant. The radar showed the fighters pulling back slightly, reassessing. What's our fuel status? Maya asked quickly. The co-pilot checked. We have about 4 hours at current consumption. And how far to the nearest military airspace? Guam is closest, about 90 minutes at our max speed. Maya did the calculation. If they could reach Guam, they'd be in range of U.S. military response. The fighters wouldn't dare attack near a U.S. base. But 90 minutes was forever in a situation like this. We need to buy time, she muttered. They'll try to force us down before we can reach help. We need to. The radar alarm shrieked. 2 missiles, launched simultaneously from different fighters. Maya's training took over. Dive. 30 degrees down. Full throttle. The captain didn't hesitate this time. He trusted her. The 787 plunged, engines roaring at emergency power. Maya watched the missiles track them. These were heat seekers, following their engine signature. Cut engines 2 and 3. Now. What? That'll do it. The co-pilot killed 2 of their 4 engines. The 787 speed dropped instantly, the missiles overshooting as their thermal targets suddenly vanished. But now they were falling with reduced power, altitude dropping rapidly. Restart engines. Climb. Climb. The pilots worked in perfect synchronization, years of emergency training kicking in. Engines roared back to life, and the 787 clawed its way back up. The fighters were converging again, angry now. Maya's mind raced. They could keep evading, but eventually fuel or luck would run out. She needed a different strategy. How many passengers on board? She asked suddenly. 347, the captain replied. Do we have any way to contact the cabin? Intercom system. Use it. Tell them what's happening. All of it. The captain stared at her. That'll cause panic. Panic is better than false hope, Maya interrupted. They need to know what they're facing. And I need to know if anyone else on board has skills we can use. Captain Richards took a breath and keyed the intercom. His voice filled the cabin, raw and honest. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. I'm going to tell you the truth because you deserve to know. We're being intercepted by military aircraft attempting to hijack this plane. The woman who identified herself as a fighter pilot, Lieutenant Reeves, is real, and she's currently helping us evade. We're heading toward Guam where we'll have military protection, but we need everyone's cooperation. If you have any military training, any tactical knowledge, any skills that might help, please identify yourselves to the flight crew. And for everyone else, hold on. We're going to get through this. The intercom clicked off. For a moment, silence. Then the cabin erupted, but not with panic. With determination. Patricia's voice came through on the cockpit phone. Captain, we have a former Navy pilot in business class. 2 Marines in coach. And someone claiming to be a signals intelligence analyst. They're asking what they can do. Maya felt something shift inside her. They weren't alone in this. Tell the Navy pilot to get up here. Tell the Marines to secure the cabin and prepare for possible emergency landing. I need them keeping people calm and ready. And that analyst, ask if they know anything about military communication jamming and how to break it. She turned back to the radar. The fighters were repositioning, preparing for another attack. Captain, I'm going to need you to do something that's going to sound insane. More insane than what we've already done. Much more. Maya pointed at the radar. See how they're positioned. They're hurting us, trying to force us into a specific flight path. But there's a gap, right there, between those 2 fighters. It's only going to be open for about 40 seconds. The captain saw it. That's barely enough space for our wingspan. I know. If we clip a wing. We won't. Not if we do this right. Maya's voice was steady. But we need to commit fully. No hesitation. Because if we do this halfway, we crash. The cockpit door opened. A man in his 60s entered, the Navy pilot Patricia had mentioned. He took one look at the situation and his face went grim. Commander Jack Wilson, retired. Flew F-14s in the Gulf War. He looked at Maya. You need a co-pilot who understands what you're trying to do. Maya had never been more grateful to see anyone in her life. Commander, welcome back to combat flying. Hope you remember how to thread a needle. Wilson slid into the co-pilot's seat as the original co-pilot moved back. His hands found the controls with practiced ease. Haven't flown in 15 years, Lieutenant. But I figure it's like riding a bike. Let's hope so. Maya pulled up the tactical display. See that gap? Wilson's eyes widened. You want to thread a 787 through that? It's our only move. They're expecting us to turn away, to play it safe. So we do the opposite. That's either brilliant or suicidal. Often the same thing in combat. Maya allowed herself a grim smile. Ready? Wilson's hands tightened on his yoke. On your mark, Lieutenant. Maya watched the radar. The gap was closing, the fighters repositioning to eliminate the opening. They had maybe 20 seconds left. Captain Richards, I need max speed. Everything these engines have. The captain pushed the throttles to their limits. The 787 surged forward, faster than it had ever flown, pushing into speeds that made the airframe shudder. The gap was narrowing. 15 seconds. Slight dive, give us momentum. 10 seconds. The fighters saw what they were trying to do. One began to turn, trying to close the gap completely. 5 seconds. Level out, now. The 787 leveled into a perfect horizontal line, threading the needle between the two fighters with less than 50 feet to spare on each side. The massive airliner shot through the gap like a bullet, the fighters too close to each other to maneuver, forced to scatter to avoid collision with each other. The cabin erupted in confused noise, passengers feeling the intense acceleration and sharp maneuvers but having no idea what was happening. Maya checked the radar. They'd broken the formation. The fighters were regrouping, but they'd lost their tactical advantage. And more importantly, we just gained 3 minutes on them, Wilson observed, checking their position. They'll catch up, but 3 minutes is everything. Maya was already planning the next move. Commander, you know emergency frequency protocols. Help me get a message out past their jamming. The signals analyst Patricia had mentioned appeared at the cockpit door, a young man in his 30s, glasses askew, looking terrified but determined. I'm Marcus Chen. Worked with signals intelligence for 8 years. If someone's jamming your comms, I might be able to punch through. How? Burst transmission on rotating frequencies. We send the same message on multiple channels simultaneously, cycling so fast they can't block them all. Some will get through. Maya nodded. Do it. Message to any U.S. military assets in the Pacific, commercial flight under hostile intercept, for bogies, requesting immediate assistance. Current position. She rattled off their coordinates. Tell them we have government cargo aboard and estimate 90 minutes to Guam. We need air support now. Marcus worked frantically at the communication panel, his fingers flying across unfamiliar controls as he tried to jerry-rig a burst transmission system from commercial equipment. The fighters were closing again. They're not giving up, Wilson muttered. Whatever's in that cargo hold, they really want it. Maya's mind churned. Why? What could be so valuable that someone would risk an international incident by attacking a commercial flight? It had to be military technology, intelligence documents, or... Her blood ran cold. Captain, that diplomatic cargo. When did it come aboard? This morning, before passengers boarded. And the men who delivered it, did they watch it get loaded? No, they left right after signing papers. Said they had another flight to catch. Why? Maya's gut screamed warning. Get me flight attendants in the cargo hold. Now. I need eyes on that cargo. Patricia's voice came through moments later, breathless. Lieutenant, there are 3 metal cases. Diplomatic seals intact. But, one of them is making noise. Like, ticking. The word hung in the air like a grenade. Ticking. Everyone out of the cargo hold immediately, Maya snapped. Commander, can we depressurize cargo? Not without affecting passenger cabin, the 787 doesn't have separate systems. Then we have another problem. Maya's mind raced. This wasn't just about stealing cargo. Those cases might be. The radio crackled. The hostile voice again, but this time with a different tone. Urgency. Flight 624, you need to listen carefully. That cargo is not what you were told. You need to turn around. Now. Before. Static erupted, cutting off the transmission. Then Marcus's equipment lit up, his burst transmission had worked. And someone was responding. Commercial flight, this is USS Ronald Reagan, we copy your distress call. Scrambling fighters now. ETA to your position, 12 minutes. Can you maintain evasion? 12 minutes. They just needed to survive 12 more minutes. But Maya's mind was stuck on what the hostile pilot had started to say. Before what? Marcus, can you scan those cargo cases? Any kind of sensor reading? I can try routing through baggage monitoring systems. He worked the controls. Got something. Elevated heat signature from one case. And, wait. That's not possible. What? I'm reading radioactive isotopes. Low level, but... Maya's world stopped. Everyone needs to get away from cargo hold. Now. Captain, I need you to climb to maximum altitude immediately. Lieutenant, what? Climb. The captain pulled back on the yoke, sending the 787 into a steep ascent. Passengers pressed into their seats, some crying out. Wilson's face was pale. That ticking. Those isotopes. Are you saying? I'm saying this plane is carrying a radiological device. Probably meant to be detonated over a populated area. Maya's voice was steady despite the horror flooding through her. And those fighters aren't trying to hijack us. They're trying to stop us from reaching land. The pieces fell into place. A false flag operation, make it look like diplomatic cargo, get it aboard a commercial flight, detonate over Tokyo or another major city. The resulting disaster would trigger international chaos, maybe even war. How long until it goes off? Wilson asked quietly. I don't know. Could be minutes. Could be hours. But we can't land. If we land anywhere near population, we're delivering exactly what someone wants. Captain Richards's voice was hoarse. So what do we do? We can't stay in the air forever. And if there's radiation? The cargo hold has some shielding. At this altitude, dispersal would be minimal. Maya was calculating rapidly. We need to get that thing off this plane before it detonates. Is there any way to open cargo doors in flight? That would cause catastrophic decompression. Everyone wears oxygen masks. We can survive decompression. Maya looked at him directly. We can't survive a radiological blast. The radio erupted again, military frequency, clear and strong this time, Flight 624, this is Viper Squadron from USS Reagan. For F divided by a -18s en route, weapons hot. Be advised, we have intel suggesting hostile fighters may be attempting to prevent an attack, not causing one. Repeat, you may be carrying hostile cargo. Recommend immediate. A massive explosion rocked the aircraft. Warning lights blazed across every panel. The plane shuddered, tilting wildly to the left. We're hit. Captain Richards fought the controls. Left engines gone. Fire suppression activated. Maya checked the radar. The fighters hadn't fired. They were backing off, breaking formation. Which meant the explosion came from inside. The device just armed itself, Marcus called out, his voice cracking. Heat signature spiking. It's going to. How long? Minutes. Maybe less. Maya made a decision that went against every instinct, every protocol, everything she'd been trained to do. Captain, open cargo doors. Vent everything into the Pacific. But the decompression. Better than nuclear fallout. She grabbed the intercom. All passengers, oxygen masks now. Emergency decompression in 30 seconds. Marines, secure loose objects. Everyone brace. Chaos erupted in the cabin, but the two Marines were already moving, helping passengers with masks, strapping down anything that could become a projectile. Commander Wilson, take the controls. Captain Richards, help me with cargo bay controls. They worked frantically, overriding safety systems, preparing to do something that every aviation regulation prohibited, deliberately depressurizing an aircraft at altitude. U.S. fighters ETA 8 minutes, Marcus reported. Not fast enough. Cargo doors opening in 3, 2, 1. The cargo bay doors blew open with explosive force. The pressure differential created a hurricane inside the aircraft, ripping bags and loose items toward the gaping hole. The three metal cases tumbled out into the night sky, plummeting toward the dark Pacific below. The decompression was violent but controlled. Oxygen masks deployed automatically. The cabin pressure dropped, ears popping painfully, but everyone was breathing. Cases away. Patricia confirmed through her mask. Cargo hold empty. 30 seconds later, a flash lit up the night sky below them, bright enough to illuminate the clouds, a brief sun born and dying over the empty ocean. The radiological device had detonated at sea level, far from any population, its dispersal minimal in the vast Pacific. They'd done it. Maya collapsed back against the bulkhead, her legs suddenly weak. 347 lives saved. An attack prevented. A catastrophe averted. U.S. fighters in visual range, Wilson reported, his voice shaking with relief. We've got escort now. The hostile fighters had vanished, probably realizing they'd failed, running before U.S. military could engage. Captain Richards stood and faced Maya. His face was gray, aged 10 years in 30 minutes. But his eyes held something like awe. Lieutenant Reeves. I don't know how you knew. I don't know how you stayed so calm. But you saved everyone on this plane. Maya shook her head slowly. Commander Wilson saved us. Marcus saved us. The Marines saved us. The captain who trusted me saved us. She looked out at the night sky, where U.S. fighters now flanked them in protective formation. Everyone saved everyone. The flight to Guam was slow, they were down one engine and running on fumes. But U.S. fighters guided them every mile, and when they finally touched down, emergency crews and military personnel surrounded the aircraft. Maya sat in the cockpit as the engines finally spooled down, the sudden silence almost deafening after the chaos. Her hands were shaking now, delayed reaction, adrenaline crash. Commander Wilson noticed and quietly placed a hand on her shoulder. First time, he asked gently. First time what? First time saving 300 people while breaking every rule in the book. Maya laughed, a sound that was half sob. Yeah. First time. The cockpit door opened and Patricia appeared, tears streaming down her face. She didn't say anything, just pulled Maya into a fierce hug. Behind her, other flight attendants crowded in, all wanting to touch her, to thank her, to confirm she was real. When they finally deplaned, Maya expected to slip away quietly, back to her cover, back to anonymity. But as she stepped into the terminal, still wearing that borrowed UCLA hoodie, the passengers erupted in applause. They were waiting for her. All of them. The businessman from across the aisle stepped forward, tears in his eyes. My daughter is getting married next month. I'm going to walk her down the aisle because of you. The mother with the crying baby approached next, her child now sleeping peacefully. I don't know how to thank you. You gave my son a future. One by one, passengers came to her, not demanding, not overwhelming, just quietly grateful. Sharing what they would have lost, what she had saved. Maya felt tears burning her eyes. In 6 years of military service, she'd flown countless missions, had confirmed kills, had completed objectives that were classified at the highest levels. But she'd never seen the faces of the people she'd saved. Never heard their stories. Never understood the weight of what civilian casualties prevented actually meant. This was different. Military police arrived then, polite but firm, explaining that she needed to come with them for debriefing. There would be questions, lots of questions, about who she was, why she was on that flight, how she knew what to do. As they led her away, Captain Richards called out, "Lieutenant Reeves." She turned. "When they ask me what happened up there, I'm going to tell them the truth. A kid sleeping in 8A saved us all. And I'm going to make damn sure everyone knows your name." Maya smiled, even as military escort closed around her. "Captain, I prefer you didn't. But, thank you." The debriefing lasted 3 days. Maya sat across from stern-faced officers who demanded to know why she'd broken protocol, why she'd revealed her identity, why she'd risked compromising classified operations. Her commanding officer was furious, her cover was blown, years of careful positioning wasted. But then the President of the United States called personally. He thanked her. He told her that intelligence agencies had been tracking the radiological device for months, had no idea it had been smuggled onto a civilian aircraft. Her actions had prevented an attack that would have killed thousands and potentially started a war. The diplomatic cargo had been a setup, a false flag operation by a rogue military faction attempting to destabilize international relations. The hostile fighters that had intercepted them. They were actually trying to prevent the attack, but had been unable to communicate their intentions through the jamming. It was messy, complicated, and deeply classified. But 347 people were alive because Maya had made the right choice. Her commanding officer eventually relented. "Lieutenant, you broke every rule we have. You compromised your cover. You risked our operations." A pause. "And you did exactly what you were supposed to do, protect American lives. I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Flying Cross." Maya shook her head. "Sir, I don't need a medal. I just need to know those people are safe." "They are. Because of you." Maya stood in front of a lecture hall at the Air Force Academy. 200 cadets sat before her, eager and young, just like she'd been not so long ago. "You're going to be told that following orders is everything," she began. "And most of the time, it is. But sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, you'll face a choice between orders and lives. Between protocol and people." She paused, remembering that moment in Seat 8A, the captain's desperate voice, the decision that had changed everything. When that moment comes, you won't have time to think. You'll act on instinct, on training, on who you are at your core. And you need to be someone who chooses right over easy. Someone who chooses lives over rules. A cadet raised her hand. "Lieutenant, weren't you scared?" Maya smiled. "Terrified. The whole time. But fear doesn't mean you're weak. It means you understand the stakes. You just can't let it paralyze you." After the lecture, a young woman approached, barely 18, fresh-faced and determined. "Ma'am, I just want to say. I heard about what you did. The real story, not the official version. And that's why I'm here. I want to be like you." Maya looked at her, this kid who reminded her so much of herself at that age. "Then remember this," Maya said quietly. "It's not about being a hero. It's about being ready when you're needed. Stay humble. Train hard. And never forget that the real mission is always protecting the people who can't protect themselves." The young woman nodded, stars in her eyes. As Maya walked out of the academy, her phone buzzed. A text from Captain Richards. "Flight attendant reunion next month. Patricia insists you come. She's making those tamales you mentioned. No pressure, but if you don't show up, I'm pretty sure she'll hunt you down. Fair warning." Maya laughed and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." She looked up at the sky, clear blue, peaceful, safe. Somewhere up there, commercial flights were crossing oceans, carrying passengers who would never know how close they'd come to disaster. Carrying people who just wanted to get home to their families, their lives, their futures. And if something went wrong, there would be pilots ready. Trained. Prepared to make the hard choices. Maya had been just a kid sleeping in 8A. Until she wasn't. Until 347 lives depended on her waking up and becoming exactly who she'd trained to be. She didn't regret it for a second. In a classified briefing room in Washington, D.C., military intelligence officers reviewed the incident. The radiological device was meant to detonate over Tokyo, the analyst explained. Casualty estimates were in the tens of thousands. The political fallout would have been catastrophic. And Lieutenant Reeves figured it out mid-flight. She put the pieces together, yes. Made decisions in real time that saved countless lives. What about her cover? Compromised beyond repair. But considering what she prevented. The officer shrugged. It was worth it. Where is she now? Training new pilots. Teaching them tactical thinking, crisis management, how to make impossible choices. A pause. She's exactly where she needs to be. The briefing ended, files were sealed, and the full truth of Flight 624 remained classified. But somewhere in Colorado Springs, in a small apartment near the academy, Maya Reeves slept peacefully for the first time in months. No nightmares. No guilt. No second-guessing. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when the moment came, when the captain screamed for help, when everything hung in the balance, she had been ready. She had been enough. And 347 people were alive because a kid in seat 8A had woken up and chosen to stand. That was all that mattered.